As I excitedly slashed, blasted, wooed, looted, and delved my way through the stunning and enthralling world of Dragon Age the Veilguard, I kept having one thought. Wait, BioWare made this? 2024 BioWare?
You're really selling it.
With this game coming in the wake of the debacle that was Anthem, itself preceded by Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda, which were both merely alright in hindsight, I wasn't sure these former masters of the role-playing game craft could make a game like this anymore. But putting together my team of interesting and endearing companions to save the world felt like getting the old band back together, in more ways than one.
Archdemons attacking the north wall!
Try the horns.
The Archdemon's too loud!
No one's retreating.
There's no choice, sir. We're under siege. We have to fall back to the dragon trap.
Forget the trap. Send word to Commander Janos. Rally outside the wall.
The scope of this adventure is the whole north of Thedas, sending you from the coasts of Ravane to the blighted wilds of the Anderfels, as you attempt to prevent the rise of an ancient and menacing evil. It was thrilling, as a longtime fan of the series, to finally see so many of the places I'd only read about in a journal entry way back in 2009. And the way BioWare has us go about that exploration is very focused and deliberate. Veilguard's level design was one of the first things that jumped out at me, reminding me of the original Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic almost more than anything. The slick, looping corridors with just enough little nooks to discover are cleverly interconnected in a way that proves how a BioWare-style RPG gains a lot and loses almost nothing by ditching the idea of a fully open world. The exceptions to that are a couple of the more vertical sections of the city of Minrathous, which can be a little bit of a pain in the ass to navigate sometimes. Across the board, though, the environment art is really jaw-dropping. From the desolate peaks of Kal Shirak to the surreal floating elven ruins in Arlathan Forest. I was very pleased with the character designs, too. The armor and outfits are fabulous. I spent more than an hour in the character creator, like I usually do, and came out with a version of our protagonist, Rook, who delighted me every time she was in frame. This might be some of the best looking hair I've ever seen in a video game.
I'll bet.
Even with all of that visual splendor, I was able to get a stable 60 FPS at 4K on my RTX 4070 Super with DLSS set to maximum performance, which usually didn't affect the visual quality in very noticeable ways. The one exception to this was in the late game when there could be so many spell effects going off at once that I not only lose frames, it's also just difficult to even see what's actually going on. Through the crackle and sparks though, Veilguard's combat is definitely a refinement of what we saw in Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. I've always preferred the more tactical style of Dragon Age Origins or Baldur's Gate 3, but that ship sailed so long ago for this studio, not even the Evanurus remember what it looked like. And so, judging this very action-focused combat system for what it is, it's pretty good. BioWare has committed fully to the fast-paced style and refined it to a point that I enjoy it quite a bit. And the ability to pause and issue party members' orders, just like in Mass Effect, still gives some opportunity for more tactical players like myself to look around the battlefield and consider our next move. It definitely feels better on a controller than mouse and keyboard though. I was somewhat disappointed that party members are more like extensions of your own character in combat at this point, rather than their own entities. They don't even have health bars, for instance. They can't be knocked out, whereas you instantly lose an encounter if Rook goes down. They do have equipment slots and skill trees, though less than what Rook gets. But overall, the amount of customization available for the whole squad through piles and piles of interesting upgradable loot was more than enough to satisfy my RPG appetites, if not fulfill my wildest fantasies of intricate battle management.
Hero, nice shot.
In my 100-hour, near 100%, almost obsessively completionist playthrough, I styled Rook as a Spellblade, a mid-ranged melee hybrid mage, and really enjoyed the playstyle once I'd unlocked all of my core tools. Dancing with a dagger through a lightning storm I summoned, darting out of danger and then back in for a lethal blow, is just a really good time that rewards precise timing and wise target prioritization. This isn't the tactical Dragon Age of my youth, but it is a Dragon Age I can vibe with. And the highlights of combat are definitely the boss fights, which offer a really satisfying challenge, even on the default difficulty. While standard mob fights with Darkspawn or Venatori cultists eventually got a little repetitive after 90 plus hours, going up against a high dragon never failed to get my blood pumping, as I had to carefully study attack patterns and think on my feet.
There's our chance. Get in there.
In the sense that a BioWare RPG is really about your companions, also known as the friends we made along the way, this might be the most BioWare game of all time. Not only is the whole squad made up of complex, memorable, likable, distinct personalities from across Thedas, but they're all treated as the stars of their own story. Veilguard is light on that classic kind of side quest that's like, help Bingo Bongo find some nug grease. And I don't miss those much, because they've been replaced by full-length heroic arcs for each companion, with twists, turns, a personal nemesis, major character developments, and a moment of triumph fit for a protagonist rather than a sidekick.
Our rogue necromancer has hidden something terrible behind this door.
It's like the writers took the loyalty missions from Mass Effect 2 and blew them up into 7 miniature games of their own. Almost every side mission ties into one of these, which obliterates the sense that you're just doing busy work.
Nothing I'm seeing makes me want to look away.
Picking a favorite of the 7 Veilguard members to talk about genuinely feels like an impossible task. I really want to just say all of them are my favorite, but I had a rewarding romance with the stoic Grey Warden Davrin and became mother to his fledgling Griffin pal Asan, so he's gotta be my pick for this playthrough. Asan, that is. Seriously, if anything ever happens to this little guy, I will wash Thedas away in a tide of fire. The Vincent Price-inspired gentleman necromancer Emmerich is also a delightful twist on the usual edgy goth death mage tropes.
We'll be fighting weirder stuff than necromancy.
And while we've been asked by the devs not to spoil specifically who I'm talking about here, as a non-binary person myself, Veilguard includes some of the most authentic representation of coming to terms with general gender stuff, and having to navigate your family's reaction to it I've yet to see in a game. It doesn't feel like an after-school special or like I'm being pandered to. It's quite well handled, and finding out that the writer for this character is non-binary themselves did not surprise me at all.
A damn good-looking hero, if I do say so.
The larger plot that's threatening the world in the background as we're doing all these more personal quests is nothing particularly outstanding in its overall structure. We need to unite some factions to fight some evil gods who are trying to do bad things with tentacles. The major wrinkle that makes that interesting, however, is Solus, also known as the Dreadwolf, Fen'Harel, the elven god of lies and rebellion, waiting in the wings, keeping me guessing about whether he was a friend or foe.
I need to know what the gods are planning.
You are asking for knowledge no mortal in this world is privy to.
As a continuation of the Dragon Age series, Veilguard does feel a little disconnected from where we left off a decade ago. If you were expecting decisions from previous games in the series to carry over, I'm sorry to say they've never mattered less. You only get to import 3 choices, one of which only comes up in the context of a single letter you may or may not find and read. You do get to recreate your Inquisitor from Dragon Age Inquisition, the same way Inquisition let you recreate your Hawk if you played Dragon Age 2, and the Inquisitor ends up being a fairly important character, which was cool.
It isn't just Inquisitor, is it? You were someone before that.
But things like who you chose to make the head of the Chantry at the end of Inquisition never come up. There's no sign of the Warden from Origins, even though you visit the stronghold of their order. Hawk gets only a passing mention. There are some other cameos from both Origins and Dragon Age 2, but those characters conspicuously don't reference any important choices you may have made in their presence. This story feels like both a send-off and a soft reboot in a way, which was a bit paradoxically refreshing and disappointing at the same time.
Agreed.
The pacing early on is kind of weird too, and I felt like I could practically smell the rewrites. For example, it's hilarious that no one ever says the word Veilguard out loud across the 100 hours I played of this dialogue-packed campaign, exposing a last-minute marketing pivot for what it is.
You're making us sound like soulless. That's uncomfortable.
But it doesn't take too long for things to get on a good track story-wise, and when they do, they stay on it. Aside from one huge choice you'll make early on, the most interesting bits of narrative design don't come up until the very end of Veilguard's story. And again, it's hard to dig into this too much without spoiling something, but the finale is also very much in the spirit of Mass Effect 2, which has an ending that up until now may have been the best series of complex consequential choices ever featured in an RPG. The sacrifices I had to make in the closing hours hurt. The wise decisions I made paid off, and I even got the chance to dramatically flick an ace out of my sleeve at the very last moment, specifically because I took a very thorough and careful approach to everything leading up to that. It really felt like the ultimate reward.
Attack!
Throughout it all, the cinematic flair is off the charts, proving that BioWare is unmatched in the RPG world in that particular discipline. So much of the best stuff I can't even show you here, but parts of it felt like watching a big budget fantasy movie in the best ways. A triumphant and effective, if not quite iconic, score elevates these moments further. Dragon Age the Veilguard refreshes and reinvigorates a storied series that stumbled through its middle years, and leaves no doubt in my mind that it deserves its place in the RPG pantheon. The next Mass Effect is going to have a very tough act to follow, which is not something I ever imagined I'd be saying before I got swept away on this adventure.
It's good to have goals in life.
Enjoyable action combat, a fantastic cast of allies with sweeping story arcs all their own, top-notch cinematics, and moving, nuanced character writing are the wings on which this triumphant dragon soars.
Watch the wings!
Pulling out all the stops in a whirlwind tour of Northern Thedas, and capping it with a terrific finale that's built on memorably tough choices and consequences. If we never get another Dragon Age, at least it got to go out on a high note.
Even if that means our world has to burn.
For more amazing RPGs from this year, check out our reviews of Metaphor ReFantazio or World of Warcraft's The War Within expansion. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Order every blade out of Weishaupt!
We'll all die, sir.
That's an order, Warden.
Can't say I didn't try.